Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul. I am the infrastructure nerd, and you are attending our February 2014 Coffee Pot webinar on PracticeMaster's new document management. That's a mouthful, and I had to think about it as I was talking, and as many of you know, I don't think and talk at the same time. I kind of stare off into space when I'm thinking. So it's difficult for me to do that, but I made it through, and here we are. And before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. This is the equivalent of when you're at a live webinar or live seminar, when they tell you where the bathrooms are. This is the equivalent of that. This is where we tell you how to use your GoToWebinar control panel. And if you are looking at something like this on your screen, then it is because you have not clicked this little button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because clicking that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right will move this out of your way. If you cannot see my screen because this is in front of it, or can't see part of my screen because this is in front of it, just click this button and this will slide out of the way. When you do that, this button will turn into an arrow that looks more like it's pointing to the left. And when you click that button again, when it's pointing to the left, it'll slide this back out. That's where you ask a question if you're shy. If you're shy and you have a question, you type it here, you hit the send button, and our humble moderator, Leanne, will recognize that you have a question. She will wait for the exact opportune moment, and she'll interrupt me and ask your question on your behalf. If you have follow-up questions while I'm answering your first question, just keep typing them here, and just keep remembering to hit the send button every time you type a question. Leanne will continue to relay your questions on your behalf, and we will get your question answered. If you prefer a more interactive, non-shy sort of approach, you can press this button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. That means raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, Leanne will again interrupt me at the appropriate time, but instead of reading your question, she will simply unmute you, and you can ask your own question. Again, keep talking. You will remain unmuted until your question is done being answered. So keep talking and keep asking questions, and don't hesitate to interrupt me if I'm going the wrong way. Just keep asking those questions until we get that question answered. So, without any further ado, and even with it, let's talk about document management and PracticeMaster. Now I'm going to go over here to Purdue Law, the infamous Purdue brothers that we like to make fun of and talk about and use as our demo client. Now, I have World Docs running right now. Why am I telling you this? Because World Docs is a standalone document management system that we've been selling for many, many years, and we have quite a few clients using. In the past, the reason that somebody decided that they wanted to use World Docs instead of PracticeMaster, the number one reason I should say, was that World Docs will pop up when you go to save a document and say, I'll put it away, just tell me the name. PracticeMaster prior to version 17 did not do that. You would have to, there were buttons you could press, but you still had to go put the document away all by yourself in the right folder, in the right place, and then come back to this document profiling screen and fill out the details, what client it is, what matter, what the description of the document is. That's called the document profile. If I go into Word right now, and I type, now is the time, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait for Bill Gates to, he has to actually come out of his office, go to a certain control panel, press the button that says it's okay for Word to load on this machine. For those of you who don't know, I'm just being funny. I know it doesn't resemble humor, but we try here. Now is the time. With World Docs loaded and running, if I press Save, no matter how I do it, whoops, whether I use File Save or this button up here or Control S, whatever I do, World Docs pops up and says, I'll put it away. Just tell me a little bit. Tell me the name of the document. Tell me what client it is, what matter, maybe what doc type. It defaults to me as the author. That's what we call compliance. That means that when you go to put a document away, World Docs pops up and says, hey, I'll take care of it. You just tell me a few answers to a few simple questions, and I'll get you on your way. Now I'm going to close World Docs. And I'm going to very quickly go into PracticeMaster. And before I do that, in order to make this work, I have to close Word as well, so we'll do that. And I'm going to go into PracticeMaster, and I'm going to enable the button bar that makes PracticeMaster my document management system so you can see just how things have changed since version 17 was released. Go to Integration, Toolbar Plugins. I'm going to click on Word. I'm going to install the Word plugin, and you're going to notice that there's a checkbox that says Automatically Save to PracticeMaster when saving document. I'm going to install Word plugin. I'm going to answer a little bit of authentication information very quickly. I'm going to cross my fingers, hope this works right. There we go. And now I have PracticeMaster set up as my document management system. And now when I go into Word, oh, gotta wait for Bill. Come on, Bill. There we go. And now when I hit Save, PracticeMaster pops up. That was not possible before version 17. Now, in addition, when I go to save this document, and I'm going to call it Now is the Time, and I'm going to put it in Purdue Law Offices, and this should be familiar to you because this is PracticeMaster. It's just a different screen that if you were looking at this webinar, you probably have not been using because you're not using document management probably. Document type, I can drop down my list or I can just start typing. I'm going to say it's a letter. Created by Paul Purdue, responsible Paul Purdue. We'll get into this stuff soon. And I hit save, and bam, it's been put away. We're back at the document. Now, that's significant for two reasons. One that I've already shown you, I told you that World Docs used to be the only way that we could set up document management and have this automatically happen when you save. The other thing is that prior to version 17, you had to put the document, even if it had popped up automatically prior to version 17, which it didn't, you still had to also put it away in the right folder with the right name. You had to give it a name and then fill out the document profile screen. Now, when you fill out the profile screen, it takes that information and automatically saves the document for you. That also is huge. So now you have those two steps eliminated. You're sure the documents are being put into the DMS, that's nerd talk for document management system. You're sure that you are putting it in the right place because you aren't even putting it in the right place. PracticeMaster is. If you answer a few simple questions, you go back to your document. Leanne, you have a question?
Yes. Kristen wants to know if this is compatible with WordPerfect.
It is. If we go back to PracticeMaster and look at the toolbar plugin section, you'll notice that we can put this button bar into Adobe, Excel, Word, Internet Explorer, Outlook. That's been there all along. That's how you're saving emails to PracticeMaster. Windows Explorer, very exciting. World Docs, well, if you happen to have World Docs, we've enhanced the integration there. Hot Docs, which has something to do more with document assembly. PowerPoint, and WordPerfect. So this will hook into PowerPoint, WordPerfect, Outlook, Internet Explorer, Word, Excel, and Adobe. Now what that means is we're putting button bars there. I have to be very clear. The only place where we automatically can save is the Microsoft Office products, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. I knew there was one more. In those programs, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, when you hit save, it will automatically put it away in PracticeMaster. I need to point out that in Adobe and Internet Explorer and Outlook and Windows Explorer, you actually press a button on a button bar that says save this to PracticeMaster. It still puts it away for you. It still names it for you. It still puts it in the right place. Now look at this, Windows Explorer. This is another thing that's new. We now have the ability in Windows Explorer to take any existing files, and this was always another big part of why people didn't use PracticeMaster for document management, getting your existing documents in. But now I can take an entire folder of documents, or just one, and right-click and choose Send to PracticeMaster, and it gives me an option to save as a new document or add it as version 2. And I say OK, and it does the same thing. It pulls up this same sort of screen to let me put it away. Now, it also pulled that up. but hold on. So, one other question, Leanne.
When you save the document, where does it go on the network?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that because that's where I was headed next. I'm going to go into utilities, customization. It's going to tell me that Leanne and Patty and Mary Jo are busy working while I'm presenting this webinar, but we're going to say that's fine. We just want to look at these options. And this is where you tell it what to do with your documents. First off, you tell it how to name the folders, how to name the documents themselves, and where they go. Now, it's important that this be set up right, and I'm not going to, this isn't an instructional webinar. It's more of a how this works webinar so that you can get a feel for whether or not this is appropriate for you. So I'm not going to get into everything about how to set up the document store and this, but we'll look at these options. Leanne?
Well, when you finish your thought, I have another question.
Okay. Different question? Different scope? Okay.
Yes.
So we can tell it that we want this, in this example, the folder will be named first with the client number, that's the part to the left of the decimal point, then a subfolder for different matters, and then finally a subfolder for document type. And if we go in here, I don't know if I can see the drop downs, I can't, but there are virtually all the different fields within the profile can be used along with the client and the matter ID can be used to configure where documents go, and then again to configure how they're named. In this example, we've got the date the document was created, the username, and then the description that the person types in as being the name of the document, with ending, of course, with the appropriate extension. So you tell it where the documents go, and they all go in the same folder with subfolders, in this example by client, then by matter, then by document type. And when you get down to fully naming the document itself, it's done with the name, the user initials, or the user name probably here, and the name of the document. Leanne?
So what if I have a document that is not firm-related that I want to save to my computer? Do I have to create a PracticeMaster folder for non-client matters?
If you're going to have PracticeMaster interrupt you when you do a save, which we recommend, then that usually is what a firm will do. There are a lot of different ways to skin this cat, and one of them is exactly what you described, having a folder for each person for their non-client related matters, and probably some certain other firm-related folders for the computer committee, the management committee, maybe a confidential folder for some accounting documents. We can manage who has access to these particular folders using the secure client feature within PracticeMaster and the folder permissions within Windows. You can also break out of that. In other words, we can set it up in such a way that when you go to save it and it wants to automatically pop up and save it, we can set it up in such a way that I hit save and it was already saved. When you go to save a document and you want it to go someplace other than PracticeMaster, we can configure it so that when you get to this screen, it allows you to save it someplace else instead of just like it normally would, as you can see here, as opposed to saving it to PracticeMaster. So a couple different ways to do that. It depends on what the firm style is. Leanne?
Okay, this question is back to WordPerfect. Is it possible for you to show an example of how that would work with
No,
Word?
I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have WordPerfect. I can tell you that you would be in WordPerfect, and instead of having it save automatically, you would simply click on a PracticeMaster ribbon or a PracticeMaster button bar and choose PM Save. So pretend this is WordPerfect, and I know that's a sacrilege to say that you should pretend that Word is WordPerfect. I apologize. But you would then click on a button called PM Save within WordPerfect with that document on your screen, and this would start the process of saving it, which absent the, that's already in there, so it's going to let me save it as a new version, which we'll get into in a second. I don't want to get into versioning. Well, now I've done it. I've opened the document management record, which is fine. So you would click this button, you would hit PM Save, Assuming it hadn't already been saved, it would simply pop up with that screen we saw before that allows you to give it a name and identify a document type and the various fields that were in that profile screen. Now, versioning. So here we are, and we have typed "now is the time," and now we're going to add some more stuff. Perhaps we're simply going to add this one word, and now we want to save it. So we can save it here, or we can do a file save. And what it does is it says, oh, yeah, I already got this. Do you want to look at the document management record just to change it? Did you want to change the name? Is that what you're doing? No. We want to add it as a new version. You can put in the reason to be whatever you want. Second draft, Paul's changes, whatever reason you feel is appropriate for this new version, say OK. And there you have it. We are now creating version 2 of this document. And if we look over here, we'll see that there are 2 versions. There's the original document, and there's Paul's changes. This is brand new to version 17. Never before did we have versioning within the document management system or the document management capabilities that were built into PracticeMaster. This is probably the second most prominent reason that in the past people chose World Docs over PracticeMaster as a way to manage documents. Now, I'll tell you what the real #1 reason is going to be now to choose PracticeMaster over World Docs. If you've already got it, you don't have to pay $500 and however many dollars, $525 per seat to put World Docs in. And you get all, if you don't already have it, you're getting practice management and document management at a cost lower than World Docs. So that's going to be the #1 reason now that people choose PracticeMaster over World Docs. But #2 and #3 close behind will be the fact that it now does these things. It now automatically names the documents. It now automatically puts them away, and it now supports versioning. And I'm saving the real reason that's the coolest of all for last. So we'll just go a little bit further and talk a little bit more about some of the other differences, some of the other features that are new. We looked at the Windows Explorer plugin. Now keep in mind, you're going to have all sorts of documents, folders of them, that need to come in to PracticeMaster all at once. So if we choose Send to PracticeMaster with a whole folder selected, maybe this is the pleadings folder for a certain matter, or maybe it's just the whole folder for a certain matter. Now when we choose Send to PracticeMaster, it gives us a different screen that lets us automatically decide how these are going to be pulled into PracticeMaster en masse. So in the past, if you wanted to incorporate PracticeMaster document management and you had a whole bunch of existing documents, it was a little bit more difficult. Okay, it was a lot more difficult to get those existing folders of documents into PracticeMaster. Now with this new Windows Explorer integration, it's very easy to take a whole folder, bring it into PracticeMaster, and move on. So it's just as quick now to bring in your existing legacy documents as it is in World Docs, which has the same sort of functionality. We talked about the other plugins, so we won't go there. Here is the probably most exciting thing, and as if that weren't enough, the automatic naming and storing of documents, the automatic versioning. Oh, one more feature I want to mention: checking in and checking out. This is huge in document management. If you're able to check out documents, and we can actually force checkouts so that when somebody opens a document, it's checked out until they save it again. That means that when somebody opens a document now, or takes it home, or opens it up on their iPad, whoops, did I say that? We'll look at that in a second. Then it's automatically checked out, and nobody else can mess with it until it gets checked back in. So now you have this collision control, I like to call it, where Bob takes a document home, works on it, and while he's got it at home, Sally tries to open the same document. And even though the network, the computer network at the office that Sally's working at, doesn't know that that document's open because it's not really open on that network, it still knows, PracticeMaster still knows that the document's checked out, so it informs Sally, no, I'm sorry, you can't have this document right now, it's checked out. Would you like to be notified when it gets checked back in? yes, no, bam. Now we no longer have that collision where Sally edits the document while Joe's got it at home, and then Joe brings it back and copies his changes in and overwrites everything Sally did. Leanne, you have another question?
I have two questions.
Okay.
The first one, I'm not sure which comment it's related to, but Jerry wants to know, even though they are already previously linked, can you take that back to your, or should we have Jerry type a little more in?
Take that back to my what?
I mean, sorry.
Oh, do I remember what, although they were previously linked? No, I'm sorry, Jerry. We've lost your connection with your previous question, so we're not quite sure what you're asking here. Type a quick supplemental question, and while Leanne is conveying and I'm answering this other question, we'll get your clarification. Second question?
Oh, he's fast. Jerry already answered.
Jerry, you're awesome.
So he says, when you link old docs that are previously linked.
This is me thinking. No, but there is a different way. There is the ability, and I don't even know where this is because this is so new to me. There is a feature in PracticeMaster where you can fix the links. And so running that feature, and I'm sorry, I don't have any idea where it is, but running this feature that fixes broken links will identify previously linked documents and identify the fact that they now should be stored where we have since told it to store its document store, and it will pull them in there and fix their links automatically. So that's very cool too. And what Jerry's asking is, his firm has been using, I'm assuming, PracticeMaster document management for a while, maybe for the whole firm, maybe just a couple matters that they've been doing it with. And so they've got these documents spread out over their network where they used to store the documents. Now we're going to store them somewhere different with PracticeMaster automatically naming them and creating folders. What happens to those documents that were there before? Because now they need to come into that new folder structure and still be associated with the profiles that were created for them before. And so what this does then is allows those two things to come back together. Utilities. Somebody's watching that knows where to go. Utilities, verify documents. There we go. Thank you. And what this does, this routine right here, once I start it, would simply go and do that matching up of these old profiles with this new document location and would copy the documents into the right place. So hopefully that answered Jerry's question. If not, he's probably already typed a new one. Second question, Leanne?
It would be helpful to have insight into a list of doc types. Catherine is interested in your advice on broad doc types versus specific types, or for unsigned documents versus signed/filed documents.
Yeah. My thoughts on both those things. First off, this is the document management tab now, and now we have these two documents in Purdue Law, and we're going to pull one of them up, and we're going to look at doc types. These are the doc types that come out of the box with PracticeMaster. They are fairly, I think, fairly broad. They're not specifically narrow, and I like broad. I like as few doc types as possible. Lawyers like, I hope there aren't any lawyers listening that are going to be offended. I know there are lawyers listening. Lawyers like to pigeonhole things because they like to know that if they put it in this pigeonhole, that they'll be able to find it later. One thing that's hard for lawyers to let go of when they move to a document management system is the fact that it is now much easier to find things from a lot of fronts, one being full-text searching. That's always been part of PracticeMaster's document management, and it still is. So now you can type, certain words that appear in that specific document and find it very quickly, or you can limit it to a certain client or a certain matter. So you can zero in on documents, and doc type is merely one of the tools you have for that. So rather than trying to use doc type to totally pigeonhole the document into exactly what you're going to be looking for later, use ones that are more broad. That's my take on how to do doc types. Now, the person who asked this question, Catherine, also asked about signed versus unsigned, and what she's implying is that you'd have a doc type for pleading that was used for the Word document that created it, and then another for plead-sign or something like that to indicate that this is the Adobe PDF that includes a signature. Because a lot of firms will do that. They'll take a document that's signed. A will is a good example of this. You have a document that is the will that you might call up and change later if it needs to be amended, but you also have a scan of the signed copy that you need to keep. I would prefer to see the doc type remain will, for instance, and have a checkbox here to indicate that this is the signed copy. So signed would be the checkbox. You'd check it, yeah, this is the Adobe signed copy. And that would just be another way that you could narrow down your search for a document or identify which one you want to open. More questions, Leanne?
There's two more questions. I don't know if this is where you want to answer them, but you can let us know. The first one is, if we already have version 16, what is the rough cost for getting version 17 for 9 computers?
If you're on maintenance, nothing. If you're not on maintenance, you'd have to email me and I could tell you, because it really depends on how long you've been off maintenance and a bunch of other things. I'm guessing that the person who asked the question is on maintenance, but if not, that's something that really can't be answered in a general way because there are so many different factors. Other question, Leanne?
And this question is from a firm that sounds like they're using the document management already, and they have issues where they're saving documents into document management under a particular client, and somehow when another person attempts to go into that client's document management file, they can't see the document that was saved.
Okay. Well, that's a problem with configuration, I'm guessing, and I couldn't really tell you specifically why that's happening now, but we'd be happy to take a look. As you say, you're assuming that this person's using it. I don't know if they're using 16 or 17. If they're using 16 and they're not using, of course, wouldn't be using the automatic naming convention, then it's possible that the person that put it away has put it in a place where the other person doesn't have access. Or maybe the drive is mapped differently. Those are two things that would come to mind. We had a firm that had this problem. They had their document drive mapped as Q on one machine and as T on another machine. And so when it gets saved, if it's not saved right and it's not set up right, then both machines can't see it. One can put it away and the other won't see it because it's trying to access it as T, and they don't have that drive mapped. So if that's nerd talk and you don't understand it, feel free to email me the question or call me, and I'll talk to you for a few minutes without charging you and tell you what my thoughts are on that. But I would suspect that it's something like that. Any more questions, Leanne?
No more questions, Paul.
Awesome. Okay, now, so we've looked at the versioning tab. We've looked at the document profile. We've looked at the way we can see the documents in PracticeMaster. This particular view is by client or by matter. We can also, using the new Quick Views and Quick Tab, Smart Tab feature, we can now look at by type, by extension, and just my documents by simply creating these Quick Views and Quick Tabs. That's not specifically a feature of document management. This is the new Quick Tabs, Quick Views, Smart Tabs functionality just being employed here in document management, kind of combining two new features of version 17 to make this really neat way of looking at a document list for a matter. See these down here, break it down by document type. When you click by extension, down here you get the different types of extensions. And when you look at my docs, it's simply narrowing it based on who the user is and who the documents, specific documents were created by. The last piece de resistance is the Matter Manager in Tabs 3 Connect. So before we go there, we have one more question. Leanne?
Mary wants to know when version 17 was released.
In beta, it was released 8 months ago, but for general release, it came out about a month ago. If you email me, I will be able to send you a link if you're on maintenance to simply update, or we can schedule Mary Jo to connect and do your update if you prefer that. If you're not on maintenance, then email me and I can tell you how much it would cost to get version 17. If you're that one person who asked about being on version 16, how much is 17? If you're on version 16 and you're not on maintenance, it's not going to be very much. It's maybe $100 per user. I can't say that for sure. That's just kind of a rough estimate. Okay, so we're going to log into Tabs 3 Connect. Now, keep in mind, Tabs 3 Connect is something that comes with Platinum. It's free. It's part of Platinum, but it has to be a Platinum install. If you don't have Platinum, you, of course, can use PracticeMaster, and you can use the document management. But this that I'm going to show you is part of Platinum. So if we go and log in as Paul Purdue and we go to the Matter Manager, and we very quickly pull up Purdue Law, this is the Matter Manager in Tabs 3 Connect, online. Don't have to be at the office. Can be on an iPad. Can be on an iPhone or an Android device, tablet or phone. Virtually any type of device that's internet connected, including a browser, because you're looking at it right now in Google Chrome. So I can go down here in the Matter Manager. We're looking at Purdue Law Offices, the client that we just created a couple documents for. I can click on Documents, and there they are. I can click back on All Activity, and those of you that have used the Matter Manager know that that view also includes documents. But here's the rub. I can go like this, and as long as this is set up right with the right naming convention, I can click this, and it's going to download the document, which I can then work on. Now, if I've got it set up to automatically check out the document when I open it, and I've got it set up in such a way that I can access those documents through Tabs 3 Connect, it has to do with how you have it automatically name your documents and where you put them. And as long, of course, as I've got Platinum, so I have access to Tabs 3 Connect, I can take documents on the road with me, view them, even edit them, and get them back to the system, all from an iPad or an iPhone or a computer that's connected to the Internet. Keep in mind, if you're doing it on an iPad or an iPhone, you do have to have an app that's capable of editing a Word document in order for that part of it to work. You can still view them no matter what. Well, okay, I guess if you have a tablet or a phone, you do have to have something that will allow you to view them or edit them. I think on most tablets, most operating systems for tablets, you have the ability to view Word documents, but keep that in mind. That's a caveat. So that's very cool. That's something that you would pay thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars with a WorldDocs type solution to add that functionality where you can view and edit documents and access them and even put them back into the system while you're on the road, while you're in the courthouse, while you're in a coffee shop, while you're at home at your computer in your study. That's something that just kind of comes along with version 17 for you users that are on Platinum that already have Tabs 3 Connect configured and set to go. So I tried to keep it under 30 minutes. I almost made it. I guess if you consider the fact that we started a little late, I guess I even closer to almost made it. Are there any more questions, Leanne?
There are no more questions, Paul.
Awesome. Not awesome because there are no questions, just awesome because I got to make my deadline. Now, if you go to attorneycomputersystems.com, you will be able to see everything that we've ever done as far as webinars. We have these e-bite videos that Mary Jo produces, and Mary Jo and I together produce something called the Paul and Mary Jo Show. We have, and you are currently watching a Coffee Pot webinar. We also have our Tabs 3, PracticeMaster, and WorldDocs virtual user group meetings. Simply clicking on one of these items will take you there, and you can see exactly what the next scheduled event is. This is the one you're attending right now, along with recordings of everything else we've ever done since we started recording about 3 years ago. Okay? So keep in mind, you can always rewatch this by coming here and going to Coffee Pot webinars. This one should be up there in about 2, 3, 4 days, depending on what Brad, the video producer's schedule is. Next month, we're going to talk in our webinar series about workflows in PracticeMaster, something that has been out there since version 16. Very cool, very underutilized. Not many firms are using them. If you want to learn more about them, that's what we're talking about next month. Everybody have a good day, good rest of the month, a good Valentine's Day, and we will talk to you next month. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.